Hey everybody, it's me, Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and I am very happy to be here with you today to talk about podcasting and the law and some legal stuff that's come up. I've got a couple of little stories from the podcast news media today, and then I also have a conversation about how you can use, about the legalities of using sweepstakes and contests in order to promote your podcast. I was having a great conversation with some of my group members in the Legit Podcast Pro group the other day, and we came up with this discussion, and I realized I needed to do a little research, so I've done that, and I wanted to share it with everybody. So I hope you're well, and I hope everybody's good, and let us come back right after this, and we'll get started. It's not working. I'm pushing the button, and it's not happening. There we go. Here we go. Nope, didn't happen. So strange. Well, I'll do it the other way. Okay, we're back. Sorry, it never fails. There's always some kind of a technical glitch. By the way, speaking of technical, this won't be a glitch, but if anybody wants to come on and join as a guest on the show today and talk about whatever's on your mind, wow, it looks like things are going a little nuts here. Let me get rid of this and see if I can bring the bandwidth usage down. There we go. It's looking a little better. Anyway, if you'd like to join the show and come on board, you can visit gpf.link. That's GPF is my initials, Gordon P. Firemark. gpf.link/guest. And come on, and I have a little interview technology. We'll try to do a split screen and talk about whatever is on your mind. I want to play with this and get the technology. I mean, this technology is new, and I want to make sure it works and help the developers make that happen. So I hope you'll join me for that. But we'll be talking about using sweepstakes and giveaways and contests and avoiding the illegal lottery trap. So let's get into the couple of news items that I was going to mention to you. I should also just make sure the audio is working, because it wasn't yesterday. Yep, it's working. Good. And if you're watching, I'd love to have a comment from you. Just let me know you're here and say hello, and we'll chit chat. If you have questions about podcast law, drop it in the comments. Anything else I can do, I'd be delighted to help out. Okay, so Pod News reports that Anchor has made some changes to how it pays its podcasters for sponsorships. They've imposed a $10 minimum. You can't take your money out until you've accumulated at least $10. That's pretty common with these kinds of things, but if you were expecting to be able to get your money out and they just change the rules on you, hey, that's not so cool. So Facebook user says, hey, and it doesn't tell me who that is, so that's what it shows me. Anyway, hey to you too. Hello world, those kinds of things. Anyway, if you're here, tell me your name I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll check in on Facebook in a minute. Anyway, so it may take longer to get your money out. Also, they seem to be taking longer just to make those payouts actually happen. They're saying it's now 4 times as long. This is Pod News reporting that. To get your money to your bank after you do trigger a withdrawal. Anyway, there's that. So what does that do? I don't know. Anyways, there's been some, hi Troy, there's been some stuff around Anchor in particular being a host for a lot of pirated podcasts where someone will come on board, grab your feed, slurp it into Anchor, and then monetize it, even though they don't own the content that's being monetized. And so maybe this will be a little more of a disincentive. If they slow down the payments, it's a little harder to cash in. Hi, Ted. Yeah, I'm using this different technology, and for some reason, it's not passing through the names of the users. So I'm gonna reopen this and see there. No, it's listing you as Facebook user. That's okay. That's not going to work for me in the future. We'll go with it today anyway. Also from Pod News, we have another situation with pirated podcasts. This time it's YouTube. Apparently a lot of folks are copying and uploading podcast episodes to YouTube channels, and that forces the owners of the podcast, the content, to play the game of whack-a-mole and identify those disturbing, hey, Charles, now you're coming through just right. Anyway, so you got to play whack-a-mole to get those pirated podcasts removed and things like that. So YouTube and Vimeo also are this. And apparently, an outfit called Takedown Torrent has clients that have found that removing the pirated content from streaming video sites has increased the normal podcast downloads. So that's the answer. So I guess that means that for those of us that have content out there on podcast feeds, we've got to kind of keep an eye out. If you haven't already set up your programmed Google searches and other things like that to identify anytime the keywords for your podcast title or your name and things like that show up, it makes some sense to do that. I myself have discovered my episodes have all been copied on some kind of a Russian YouTube kind of a site, and I don't exactly know what to do about that because the normal DMCA takedown doesn't work if they're not in the U.S. They just thumb their nose at the rules. So we have to figure out some strategies there as well. But maybe the answer is to block them from streaming into the U.S. Okay, so Johnny has a question about what is the legality of playing 10 to 15 seconds of a song on your podcast between segments. The answer is it's not legal. 10 to 15 seconds might be enough to be considered copyright infringement. It might not. It sort of depends on how you're using it and what you're using it for and so on. There might be a fair use defense, but the basic rule is, there is no rule of thumb, let me put it that way. The basic rule is don't copy something that doesn't belong to you. Don't include it in an episode of a show. Don't include it on a live stream. Don't use other people's stuff without their permission, or else you could be on the hook for a claim of copyright infringement. And then you can get into fair use and whether or not there's a defense or an exception that helps you get by with it, but that is a risky proposition because by the time you get to have that argument or conversation with the people who own the material, you are spending tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers to do the arguing for you. So my answer to you is get permission if you want to use somebody's music. And if you can't get the permission, don't use it. I'll say, if you are doing, critique and comment, criticism, if you're doing a review show and you play 10 or 15 seconds of the song you're reviewing, you might be on better ground. I can't give you a rule of thumb. It just depends. It's possible to infringe a copyright in 4 beats of a song, 4 notes. Bum, 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 bum is very distinctive. Someone uses that, it's substantially similar. So, sorry, Johnny, I can't give you a better answer than that. All right. Ted's back. Now the names are coming through. That's interesting. Okay, good. Thanks for the question, Johnny. That's great. Let me talk now, if you don't mind. Go ahead and post your questions if you have them, but I'm going to talk about using contests and sweepstakes to promote your podcast because, running a contest or a giveaway is a really good and cost-effective way to get your audience engaged in helping you promote your show. You could say to your audience, hey, for every listener who shares on social media using the hashtag, name of show promotion or something like that, we will enter you in a drawing for, I don't know, a gift card or a t-shirt, whatever it is, some kind of a prize. And then we're going to do a random drawing to find out who wins that thing. And the mechanics of this is really actually very easy. You just use a random number generator on the internet you find on the web, and you pick from the list, and whoever's at that number on the list is the winner. It's pretty easy to do. But the thing is, and this can drive all kinds of important actions. Get people onto the list, get them to subscribe, get them to tell a friend, refer, do whatever. But it's really important that you use some caution to make sure you're complying with the relevant laws, because you want to make sure that what you're doing doesn't constitute an illegal lottery. This came up the other day. I was talking to some folks in my Legit Podcast Pro group. By the way, come on over and join at legitpodcastpro.com. It's a Facebook group. It's free. Come on over and do it. But I want you to sign up for a mailing list as well. And then you get into the group. Legit Podcast Pro is the name of the group. Anyway, you want to make sure it doesn't constitute an illegal lottery. We were talking about this, and one of the other people in the group said, wait a minute, that's illegal. You can't do that. Games of chance are illegal. Well, that is not actually the case. And he got me thinking, and I went back and I verified. In order to be considered an illegal lottery, there are 3 elements or components. And if you have all 3 of them, then it can be illegal. That is that there's a consideration paid in exchange for the entry. that there's a game of an element of chance, and that there's some kind of prize being given away. So if you only have two of those, you're okay in most places. So that's why you hear the no purchase necessary disclaimers a lot of times. Consideration refers to the ways people buy their entries through monetary or occasionally non-monetary action to get into the entry for the drawing. Monetary actions, obviously, ways people buy themselves a ticket or purchase a product in order to enter or something like that. Non-monetary actions can also be considered consideration if it's something like that requires them to forfeit a big amount of time. That could be filling out a big long survey or making multiple visits to a store. Even if you don't buy anything, you got to make your visits and get your box, the card checked off 5 times or something like that. That non-monetary stuff is kind of a gray area. Some places consider those considerations, some don't. The game of chance, or the element of chance, is another component. This is really the difference between what is a contest and what's a sweepstakes. You see, a sweepstakes is a luck-based promotion where winners are chosen at random. And contests are skill-based promotions where they're chosen based on some merit or performance, right? So in order to be an illegal lottery, it has to be a game of chance. So a contest where they're competing to achieve something or delivering a writing sample or a song or something like that, and there's a curation or a selection process based on talent or performance or something like that, merit, that takes you out of the element of chance. But you can still do a luck-based promotion if you're not charging an entry fee, if there's no consideration. And of course, the third thing is the prize, and basically anything of value can be considered a prize. Some states require registration if your prize is over a certain value, things like that. Now here in the US, so that's the basic rule. If it has 2 of those 3, you're okay in most places. A few states it's different. I'm going to run through that. So here in the US, other important laws and regulations involved. You have to, in order to avoid the problems with the consideration issue, you can offer an alternative means of entry. That is, submit a postcard. That's the most common one. Maybe you can do it on the internet, where it's just, hey, submit your email address or whatever. But you got to be careful because there are privacy laws involved as well. When you start requiring people to give a name and an email address, and you're adding them to some kind of a list, I just actually was talking to someone about this today. When you start requiring them to do that, you better have the checkbox and you've got to be in compliance with the privacy rules. So just make sure you know what that is. We're going to talk about that another time. Many places you have to announce when the opening and closing dates are for entries. You have to disclose when and how the winners are going to be selected. You have to announce when the prizes are going to be awarded. You have to contact all the winning entrants, announce and publish the names of winners. In a few places, you have to actually post it online or publish it somewhere. And of course, you have to follow through with the prizes. When you're running a contest or a sweepstakes, you are making a binding contract with your entrants. They do something for you, you have to do back for them. The rules are binding. The obligation to select a winner and actually furnish the prizes is a binding contractual promise. And in this area, if you don't do that, the accusation of that the breach is also a fraud is pretty obvious, right? If you never intended to do it, then there's fraud. Or if you couldn't possibly have done it, there's fraud. So you can really be charged there. And fraud can have both civil and criminal consequences. So that's something to be careful about. A few variations to be aware of. If you want to do a tobacco-related promotion of some sort, don't do it in Massachusetts or Michigan or Virginia. If you want to automatically enter your customers into a prize drawing where the value of the prizes in the aggregate is over $50,000, don't do it in Texas. And watch out for those privacy regulations again. When you collect somebody's information, you're allowed to use it only for the purposes that they tell you you're allowed to use it for, that they agree to. So make sure you're getting the right kind of consent. Registration in Florida, if it's over $5,000 worth of prizes, you have to register at least 7 days before the contest begins or the sweepstakes begins. In New York, you have to post a bond and register 30 days before if it's more than $5,000 in prizes. In Rhode Island, if the prize pool of all the prizes together adds up to more than $500, you have to register. This seems only to apply to retail stores, but that can change in an instant, so be sure you check into it if you're doing If you're doing a sweepstakes or a contest in Rhode Island, be careful. New York requires that you post a list of the winners. Doesn't say how you post it, but you have to post it, make it public, I guess. And in most states, if you're running a contest, as I said before, contest where there's a skill or merit involved in the selection of the winner, you're allowed to require a purchase in exchange for an entry. But in the following states, you're not allowed to do that. That's Colorado, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, North Dakota, Vermont, and Virginia. So what's that? 7 states, right? So, and by the way, in Michigan, just asking them to come to the store to enter is considered consideration. Likewise, in Virginia, a store visit is consideration. So that makes it the equivalent of a purchase. So you have to give them an alternative means of entry, or don't do it. And finally, in Tennessee, this is an interesting one. It's illegal to require entrants to grant you a release to use their name or likeness, the publicity rights, in perpetuity, forever. Presumably, you could do it for a reasonable amount of time, a couple of years or something like that. But yeah, in many states that have what we call the right of publicity law, not all states do, but many do, that's a property right in your use of your name and your likeness and in other places, other elements of your persona. So if you're asking those people to sign a contract that says you can use my name or likeness, then you're asking them to give up some property. That sounds like consideration or purchase. Tennessee is the only one where the statute actually addresses this, but I think you could maybe run afoul of things in other states if you do require that release of publicity. So that is my spiel on using contests and sweepstakes. I am bullish on this. I think this is a great way to get more people to share about your podcast. Ask them to use a hashtag or some kind of special reference your show in some way so you can search and find it. And then everybody who does that gets entered in a drawing for some kind of prize that they would find exciting and valuable. And that way they get more people to listen to your show. They're acting as your street team, essentially. I think that's really valuable. So I'm going to open it back up for questions. If anybody has any, I would love to answer them. Share with me what you got. $2 stickers are safe for now. Yes. Well, yeah. If it's just selling a sticker, that's just a straight ahead purchase. If you're giving a prize, a bundle of stickers away, when somebody buys one, they're entered in a prize to get 100 of them or something like that. Yeah, you might be into an issue with this, but there you go. As I was saying earlier, it says Facebook user next to the name, so I don't know who you are. Some people's names are coming through and some aren't, which is kind of weird. But I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on there. But for right now, we're good. So, anybody have any other questions? Anything else I can answer for you? Oh, if you're giving stickers away, yeah, you're fine. Hey, reach out. I'll give you a sticker, whatever. Yeah, that should be fine. So, I think it's let me know. Is anybody using this kind of a strategy to get your audience to spread the word about your show, or get people to sign up for your mailing list or anything like that? Ted asks, is there a risk that someone sharing a link to the show is consideration for purposes of promotional drawing? Seems like it's a thin differentiation from a store visit. Yeah, that's a great question, Ted. I think that asking somebody to share is about the same as asking them to, fill out an entry form, right? Use a hashtag, send it out there. Visit the store. Presumably, look, people can't be entered in the contest if they don't tell you who they are and that they want to win, right? So I think that as long as you don't have them do a form and a share and a this and a that, you don't make them jump through too many hoops, I think you're probably okay. But yeah, if you're talking about one of those states where a store visit, Virginia and Michigan, where a store visit is considered consideration for the entry, maybe think twice about it. Maybe find a different way to do it. But yeah, I think that asking them to share and so on is fine. And this kind of thing, which state has jurisdiction? The federal government treats it broadly, and I think that it would be hard for a state that you don't live in or operate in to claim jurisdiction over something, even if their users are the people submitting. But I'm not a jurisdiction. That area of jurisdiction is probably not something I can speak to intelligently about. Facebook user says, I do, but it's usually if I choose your submitted question, I'll send you one of the, yeah, that I think that's fine. And that's actually a skill-based thing. It becomes a contest, not a sweepstakes. So you could even charge consideration, theoretically. But you're choosing based on the merits, the quality of the question. So that would be a contest, not just a giveaway. Have I heard of a case with indie podcasters where it's been an issue? With indie podcasters, I am not aware of that, but I wouldn't necessarily hear about that. This is the kind of thing. Where it's not a problem till it's a problem. And Jay, you're the Facebook user. Ted, you think you know what it is? Tell me. Hey, we're all friends here, and I'm not doing anything else. I don't have a lot of questions. So, Jay, have I ever heard? That's an interesting one because people always ask me, well, is it really a problem? Does anybody? Has anybody ever gotten caught and what's the consequence? Well, the consequence can be dire. You could be in violation of criminal statutes in some places, and you could be subject to fines and penalties. You could be subject to having to provide the prize to everybody from that state or something like that. And, it's sort of like asking, well, does anybody ever get caught, running through the red light? Yeah, every once in a while. Should you do it? You should comply with the law. And so that's what I'm here to talk about is, this one's pretty easy to comply with. Don't charge a purchase price for a game of chance where you're giving away a prize, because that is an illegal lottery. It's gaming. It violates, except in Nevada, it violates the rules. So there you go. Dean Reynolds. Nice to see you, Dean. It's been a while. Love listening to my wisdom. Well, I love hearing that you like listening to my wisdom. Thank you for that. That's great. There it is, Dean. Nice to see you today, and I appreciate your saying so. Any questions? I'm here to answer for a few more minutes, and that's that. Hey, listen, I want to tell you about my Facebook group. It's called Legit Podcast Pro. I don't know if I have a slide or something to put up about that. Let me look and see what I've got here. No, I've got the wrong slide set up here. What's going on here? It's, Legit Podcast Pro. Well, let me do this. I'm going to type it into the thing here just so you can see it. It's http://legitpodcastpro.com. If you are interested in taking your podcast to the next level, the level where you're making money from it because you're treating it like a professional, because it's your business, it's your profession, you want to go to legitpodcastpro.com and sign up to be a member of our private Facebook group where we are talking about monetization tips, we're talking about audience growth, and I'm doing some free training on some of the other areas that you need to focus on if you're going to go pro. Those being, hey, if you're going to be a professional, you've got to think legit, you've got to plan legit, and you've got to behave legit. And behaving legit, in my mind, means having your ducks in a row, getting the contracts done, getting the legal stuff done, organizing your company, building your team the right way, managing your team the right way, all that kind of stuff. And, of course, making the right kinds of deals with the sponsors and the folks that pay you money. And most of the time when people aren't getting what they want out of their podcasting or their business, it's because they haven't covered the fundamentals. They're not really ready. And there's something that happens in your mind. There's something that happens in your business when you get everything lined up. Once those ducks are all in a row, hey, guess what? Off you go. So that's what I want to help folks with inside the legitpodcastpro.com group. It is a Facebook group. I've got a page set up where I capture some information from you first, and then you come on over and join the group. And my goal is to have an impact. I want to help 10,000 podcasters. That's my goal. So I've got the first 10 in this room with me right here, right now. Thank you for that. Thanks for being here. And there you go. Okay, so Jay's asking another question. Let me see. I would be curious if a podcaster gave away something non-tangible, that is a service or an appearance on the show. Would it be considered a value of $600 and subject to a 1099? That's a great question, Jay. If you gave away something non-tangible like a service, well, I would say if you can fix a value for the service, like for example, if you hire me for 1 hour, that's close to $600 in value right there. So, if it's more than an hour of my time, then guess what? Yeah, I probably have to send you a 1099. Although, if it's a giveaway, let me think about this. If I'm the one giving you that money, it's not a. Do I have to issue a 1099? I'm not a tax person. I'm going to choose not to answer that question for fear that I would lead you down the wrong path and get you into some trouble. Talk to your tax people about that. I suspect that, yeah, you're supposed to do the 1099 thing if you're giving a prize of a value of more than $600 or whatever it is. It may be a different number for prizes and winnings like that. But yeah, I'm sure you do have a reporting obligation if you're paying out things. Now, if you're doing one of these sweepstakes every month, that's 12 of these things a year, right? I think that doing that paperwork is probably not a big ordeal. And if it gets you some new business and some new listeners and audience, it's probably worth it. That's my take. So Ted says, I'm broadcasting in multiple groups at the same time. And when you were in one group, you were listed as Facebook user. And then when you hopped over to the Podcast Lawyer group, you had name. Oh, that's what it is. So if you're in the private group right now, Jay, you are seeing that, your name is concealed because it's a private group. That's the privacy setting. So it's the people in the private group. Your name will be concealed. Okay, that's it. I understand. Thanks, Jed, for clarifying that. That's great that you figured that out, and that will influence my thinking about some of this stuff in the future. I think there's something you can do in the Facebook, in the private group, or if you're on the private group, that you can get your you can give it permission to release your name, but I'll have to figure out what the link is and do that. Yeah, I'm doing this thing with Restream so that I can be on YouTube and Facebook in three different groups, well, my page and 2 other groups at the same time, so I don't have to do the cross-posting the same way. It would be nice if this tool would allow me to cross-post that way without having to jump through these hoops, but I thought I'd try this today, and it seems to have worked out well. All right, who else is watching? Who else is here? Say hello. We're coming up on the end of the 30-minute window that I said I was going to do today. So let me know who you're here, and I'll say thank you for watching. All right. Well, there being no further business before the group, I'll say thanks and have a great day, and we'll see you again. Let me see when I'm coming back. Oh, in the group, in Legit Podcast Pro, I'm going live every single day. So tomorrow I'll be here to talk a little bit about my story, and I'd love to share your podcasting journey stories as well. So if you've got one, send me a message and let me know what you'd like to talk about, or come on and meet with me as a guest on